run through the process. So, materials that you can use. You can use a litho plate, which is thin sheets of aluminium, which are used in the commercial printing process. Probably showed you this during your mono printing workshop. You can see there's David's plumbers, fitters and specialist contractors on there, which you know, would have been printed commercially, probably leaflets or something, but this is really great to do dry point on. And this is vac form plastic. We use it as plates for the mono printing workshop. It's really great to scratch into. I think if you've done this before at college or school, you might have used the lids of takeaway lids, you know, the kind of silver takeaway lids. You can scratch into those, like Kellogg's cornflake packets. You can scratch into the kind of plasticky surface of that as well. Very similar to dry point card, and we sell the dry point card plastic here as well, so you can buy that at another point if you want to do some more. What other plates can you use? Oh, copper. Copper is quite soft. You can actually do dry point into copper as well. Be a lot more harder to scratch into because it's a denser material, but you know, you can use copper and thicker aluminium as well. Okay, so I'll just run through some of the tools that you can use. Got wire wool, bit of sandpaper, and then we've got etching needle, which is probably what you guys will mostly use. You can be quite ingenious and make your own if you want. Embroidery needle inside a mechanical pencil, one student created, or a nail taped to a chopstick. You know, anything that's going to create a mark. We also have some other tools. These are just a range of etching tools that you can borrow. There's a burnishing tool that kind of smooths down. Yours are in the drawer, Liam. So I've changed it all. It's just in the drawer. The drying stack drawer. Seen them? Yeah. We've got a roulette, which puts a little dotted structure onto the plate, but someone's rolled it through acrylic paint, so I don't know how that's going to turn out, but we'll try. A stiletto blade. Got 3 blades on it. It's used for scraping down the edges of etching plates to get them at a 45-degree angle, but you know, you could scratch using that. We've got an engraving tool here. You'll see it looks a bit like a lino tool, that's for engraving into metal. I probably wouldn't engrave it in that action. I just use it to kind of scratch into the plastic. And we've got one with a little ball bearing on the top that you might want to create different types of marks with. Sandpaper, wire wool as well. We've also got what I was talking about before, some carborundum, which is this grit mixed with white acrylic paint, and that's going to add that really rich, deep tone to your work. One very important point about using carborundum, ideally you'd make your plates a couple of days before you print from them. Needs to be absolutely dry. If it's still wet and you ink up your plate and you're using the scrim and moving the ink around, it's going to scratch your plate.
Why would it be wet? We just scratched into this. Oh, you mean that's got to be dry when it's before you can go ahead?
Yeah, the carborundum paint has to be really dry. If it isn't, you're just going to scratch it around your plate.
Can we do it today then?
Yeah, of course you can. We've got a hairdryer over there. Just make sure it's really dry before you print from it. I'd just say ideally if, you know, a day before, just so it's, you know, absolutely dry. You just might be blasting it with a hairdryer for a little bit before you print. Okay, so another thing actually, before we print, just to make sure to use the correct press. I've set each press at different pressures. The plates are slightly different in thickness. This one's a lot thinner, so it needs to be at a higher pressure to get a good print. So the metal plates if you use the green hawthorn, and the plastic plates if you use the Rorschach press. So then, because it's see-through, you can trace if you want to, You can draw your own illustration and trace from that. You can trace from photographs. You can freehand it. It's up to you. You can put it on a window and trace. You might want to lean it up against the window if you can get some room. I'll move things aside. You might want to trace from life. You might want to draw from life and life drawing classes. It's totally up to you. I'm just going to trace this little owl. And you want to apply enough pressure to get a decent scratch. It is quite surprising how much ink a little scratch can hold. You don't need to press too hard, but that will kind of come with experience. You don't want to press so hard that it warps the plate. Sometimes when you're using that, especially if you press so hard, it just bends the plate and snaps it. So it's getting a balance between providing enough pressure to gain a good mark and too much to warp the plate. So I'm working in line, kind of cross hatching, tracing. And you can get, quite surprising amount of detail. If you're using text, remember to flip it if you want it to read the correct way round. And we've got some stencils here if you want to include some text. But just to show you the plate versus the print and the velvety quality that can get, I'll just pass that around while I'm doing this. So you can see the scratches in there. That will hold the ink. You can feel it as you move your finger over it. You can use the edge of things to create marks. See there, that is just a tiny little scratch and mark, but that will actually print. Very kind of light marks will print as well, like the wire wool and sandpaper. Little roulette tool. You can see make different marks. So it's really just a case of experimenting with different corners of things. You might want to use a little bit of wire wool. Same on this as well. Sandpaper. So you can see the sandpaper there. It's going to be quite a light greyish tone when you print it. Add carborundum.
Does that take more colour, did you say, the carborundum?
Yeah, it produces really rich deep
like that. So
tone.
that actual circle is a paint of carborundum, it's not the
no, it's the ink that the carborundum's transferred. Yeah. So the carborundum would stay on the plate, but that's just the ink that is transferred. So if I printed that, that'd be a really deep black mark.
If you put it onto the scratched areas, what would that do?
Yeah, that would cover up the scratched area. That would be a deep tone over it. But if you wanted to scratch back into it before it's dry, you can do, and that's going to create a different mark as well.
So what is it? Is it sand mixed with paint?
Yeah.
No, that's all it is.
It's a type of grit. It's used, I was told it's used in the when you power blast in a car to get a scratch out of it. I think it's something to do with that. But it's used a lot in printmaking. You can also think about the shapes of your plates. You could do a long skinny plate. This can be cut on the guillotine, so can this. You can cut up different shapes, collage them together, We learnt the 2-plate printing process in the mono printing workshop. You could do the same with dry point. You could re-soak your mono prints and print a dry point over the top. You know, you can screen print on top of them. So there's lots of different options that you can do. If you want to grab a mono print from last time and print one of these over the top, that's fine as well. It's up to you. You just need to re-soak them in the water. And then you let that dry completely. And oh, there's a different shaped one that I did last week. And then once you've done that, you can print with them.